This week's headlines from the Premier League are...
Mikel's the man, as Mourinho grabs a point for Arsenal at 10 men Chelsea, but is that 2 points dropped for the league leaders?
It's Alexander the Great and a goal for Gakpo as Liverpool bounce back with a win at West Ham.
Mason Mount wins it for Manchester United at Crystal Palace. Is this another new dawn at Old Trafford?
Phil Foden scores in the first minute and the 91st minute to take an important 3 points for Manchester City.
Two Germans and a Geordie finally seal an away win for Newcastle at Everton.
Sunderland stunned Bournemouth with a sensational comeback.
Tottenham are toppled by Fulham. Will they ever win at home again?
Brentford batter Burnley.
Camara is the king for Aston Villa as they climb to third, but it's another defeat for Wolves.
And Brighton battles victory away at Nottingham Forest. Hello, I'm Steven Caulker.
And I'm Rob Wotton. Welcome along to Kicking Off, the weekly podcast that provides analysis and opinions on the biggest talking points in football that you can steal, take away, use it down the pub and impress your mates. It's all coming up here. Okay, let's kick off with Chelsea against Arsenal. The dust still settling from Stamford Bridge. 10 men Chelsea took the lead. Arsenal came back to earn a point. Stephen, which way do you see this? 2 points drop from Arsenal?
Yeah, for me, I would say 2 points drop by Arsenal with Chelsea having 10 men for so long. I would have expected Arsenal to really have, put more pressure on Chelsea defensively. And I would expect Arsenal to be going back to North London with the 3 points. Whether that will prove costly over the course of the season remains to be seen. But I would say it's 2 points drop for Arsenal today.
And you managed to say that without chuckling to yourself at that moment. A word on the sending off. A red card for you?
It's a really tough call. Sometimes I look at VAR and I get just as frustrated as a lot of fans sitting at home. But he looks like he slips. But the more I watch it back, it is quite an aggressive tackle. And I guess if I'm on the sideline, if I'm Enzo Maresca, I'd be fuming. If I'm Mikel Arteta, I'd be looking for the red card and putting pressure on the referee. So it literally is one of those ones which sits right in the middle. And, I'm going to throw it back to you. As a Chelsea fan, what's your thoughts on that one?
Well, as a Chelsea fan, but also as a relisher of Dermot Gallagher baiting, I will put it to you this way. It seems to contravene two of PGMOL's directives. One is that if the challenge is ankle or below, it's not a red card. We saw one in the Chelsea game at Tottenham when Bentancur came in on Reece James. That wasn't given as a red card. In fact, it wasn't given as anything. And also, you mentioned the slip. If the player is slipping and slightly out of control because of the conditions rather than his violence, then that is also another mitigating circumstance. So according to the PGMOL directives, no red card. But then it's Anthony Taylor. Right, let's go to Liverpool. Picked up a much needed win for them. Difficult circumstances with the terrible, sad news of the passing of Billy Bonds. A wonderful man. But Liverpool, Mo Salah, is this the end of an era now?
I don't believe it's quite end of an era, but I do believe that Mo Salah this season hasn't been at his best form. And, Arne Slot has to make decisions week in, week out. I think today, Arne Slot got it right. He was under a lot of pressure. The expectation that you have managing at Liverpool Football Club, the expectation following on from Klopp, the expectation after winning the league last year is huge. So for Liverpool to be where they're at in the league table going into today was a huge game. However, I thought Liverpool got the job done. Yes, the sending off helped. Isak got his goal. Great goal, by the way. What a finish that is. Gakpo scored a great goal at the end to seal it. I'm quite happy today for Arne Slot. Just to breathe a sigh of relief.
Let's go to Manchester United. Stephen, explain to me, how can you fail to beat 10 men who seem to be fighting amongst themselves midweek and then go to Crystal Palace and come from a goal down to win on the Sunday?
It's been a story of Man United for the past decade, just really, really struggling with consistency. Today is a perfect example of that. Great result, really tough place to go and get a result, by the way. And they've gone there and they've done that. And you're thinking, again, are United back? But I said a couple of weeks ago on the radio, I'll say it again now, like I don't think United are going to be back, officially back for a very long time. But the good thing is they always give us plenty of talking points.
Yeah, Zirkzee, how nice was it to see him score? He's not had the best of times, has he, at Old Trafford?
No, and I feel like his performances at times have actually been really good. I think there's certainly a top player in there, and he has found it difficult, as most players who go and play for Man United have found it difficult. Most signings in recent years have struggled at United, and I'm hoping to then see more of the player that we've seen in the past.
What about Foden? As a centre half, you would have thought, squaring up to Foden, there's not an inch he can get that ball through. We've got this covered, lads. Don't you worry about it, my friends. And then it went in the back of the net.
That finish was incredible because he's facing away from the goal. He's almost taken it a little bit too far. So for him to get that twist on his body and his hips, I'm not sure I could get my hips that far out.
I've seen you dancing. You can shake those snake hips anytime.
I'm not sure. I'm getting old now, but when I saw him shape his body like that, put it into the bottom corner, I thought, wow! And the relief again on his face, the excitement, because he had a difficult year last year, and he's been in really good form this year. There's been a couple of conversations about whether he should be involved in England, whether he should be on the plane, but I love him as a player, and I just think like days out today, where he scores in the first minute, scores in the last minute, he got City those 3 points, and he's a special player.
What a corker.
All right, here we go on kicking off. This is the part when we ask who's had a Steven Caulker this weekend as we look back on the Premier League. It's not me and Steven for dressing the same this show. That's a given, isn't it? But on the pitch, Steven, who had a corker for you?
I'm going to give it to Thiago. I thought last week, missing a penalty in the dying minutes would be a really tough one to take. It's one of the highs and lows in football. Last week, I'd imagine on the way back from Brighton, would have felt as low as a snake's belly. This week, as high as a kite. What a moment for him. And he deserves it. He started the season so well. He stepped up for a penalty. He slotted it in very, very calmly and reassuring. And then he's popped up with the goal as well to make it 2-1. So for me, I've got to give him the Steven Caulker trophy this week.
Was there any doubt that he was going to take that penalty?
No doubt in his mind, absolutely. You could see that from the very first second. He wanted that penalty. His team trusted him as well. That's what I love. I hate to see it on the pitch. I hate to be involved in that where you've got players fighting over who's taking it, who's not. Just love the fact that it's in his hands. Everyone's confident and trusting in him that he's going to do it. Look at the players who believe in themselves, who have that confidence. It's great to see.
What about Brentford and what their manager is doing there? Because he hasn't got much experience. Yes, he's got some with the Republic of Ireland. He's been assistant around about, and he actually originally came into Brentford, I think, as their set-piece coach. So what of the job that he's doing?
A fantastic job. I grew up as a Brentford fan, and to see them in the Premier League still feels kind of strange, if I'm honest with you. I was back in the day watching them in League 2, League 1 at Griffin Park. There was a lot of question marks on whether Keith Andrews was the right appointment. He had big boots to fill with. Thomas Frank had obviously done a fantastic job there. But he just seems to have stepped in and had a seamless transition. To begin with, at the start of the season, it took him a little bit of time to get going, but not as long as some managers that we look at. And people talk about the long throw that they use. Great, why not? If it's effective. I just love that. They can lose Wisser in the summer, and again, they're still finding players to come in and just continue where they left off. So it's great to see. And as I said, I was a young Brentford fan, and to see them where they are today, it's a special feeling.
Well, Steven, I'm somewhat puzzled actually, because I would have put my house on the fact that you would go for a German goal-scoring centre-back as your Steven Caulker this week, because I'm talking about Newcastle, I'm talking about Thiago. What did you make of that as a player who's played in that position?
Well, firstly, there's a reason why I stopped gambling, because life is hard to predict, right? I've gone with Thiago, as I said, as a young Brentford supporter. But now you mention him, he was absolutely amazing. For a centre-half to score 2 goals, I've done it once in the game. Might give myself a little shout out there. I've done it once in the Premier League quite a while ago. But it's not about me. It's about Newcastle getting their first away win. And I said for a centre-back to score 2 great headers, especially the first one, at the first minute into the game, gets up high, heads in the back of the net. I thought I thought not just the goals, but also his performance. For me, I know one player of the match. He was outstanding. So I could have given him a mention, but like I said, Thiago, I've got a little soft spot for Brentford, and after what he went through last week, I was pleased to see him do the job.
What a Reggie blinker.
Now, Rob, sticking with the Cockney rhyming slang, we've gone for Steven Caulker. We're now going to go for the Reggie blinker stinker. This part of the show, I ask you, who's had an absolute stinker this week? Who's had a nightmare? It's got absolutely nothing to do with Reggie Blinker himself. He was an outstanding player. But sticking with the slang, who's had a Reggie Blinker stinker in your mind?
First of all, hello, Reggie. Thanks for watching. Right, let's get to it. It has to be Lucas Paqueta. I mean, there you are. You're just back from a suspension for yellow cards totting up. Darren England is desperately trying not to send you off. He calls over your captain and tries to have a word with him, yet you still won't leave it alone. You still keep having a go. And eventually, fair play to Darren England. He did try, but eventually he had to send him off. And at that moment, the game wasn't over, was it? I mean, they're only 1-0 down at that point. You never know with a player of Paqueta's ability. They could have come back into it. They could have got a goal. They might have. Most probably wouldn't, but they might have. So Lucas Paqueta has had a Reggie Blinker stinker. But perhaps, Stephen, there's more to this than a first look.
What did you make of his comments on X, as we call it nowadays? What did you make of that? He's come out and he's had a little bit of an outburst, if you want to call it that. He's made a statement. What did you make of that?
Yeah, he's made a statement effectively saying that he shouldn't be judged in public because he's under pressure surrounding other things. The inference is that his mental well-being has been impacted by previous events. He also goes on to say that he hasn't, in his mind, received the support perhaps that he desires from what he calls the federation, whether by that he means the Football Association, the Brazilian Federation, the Premier League, or the PFA. Don't really know what he means by that, but he then goes on to finish, I'm not perfect is kind of the way he finishes that. It's very interesting because what it gives us is an insight. What he didn't do is come out and apologise for getting sent off in a pivotal moment in a game. That gave me the feeling that actually it could be about where his mind is, because normal stock answer from a footballer is to apologise, put your hands up, apologise to the dressing room, apologise to the manager, apologise to the fans, and hope it's okay. You have been a footballer. Is it easy? Is it relevant? Is it well known to footballers that there is access to mental health facilitators, whether that be a counsellor, whether that be a residential stay, that is funded by the PFA through Sporting Chance? Is that well known?
I'll say in 2025, it is. It's very well known. I understand that he's not British born and he's not been here his whole career. However, I would be extremely surprised if West Ham haven't touched on that over the last couple of years and offered him that support through the PFA, as you mentioned, private support. The club's not short of money. They have a lot of player care and player welfare officers now within clubs that recognise players and people, not just players, staff, people, anyone around the club that needs support. There's access to all of that. There seems to be a little bit of a lack of accountability, if I'm honest, in that statement. There is, you mentioned it being everyone comes out and says sorry. That's been a typical footballer thing to say. But part of that is just owning your wrongs, because in that moment, I don't think there's any denying that he was wrong to have done what he's done. He's let down his teammates, he's let down the manager, and he's let down the fans. However, putting that aside, putting, that bit of it, to one side, I can understand that he's struggling. Footballers are no different to the man and woman on the street. They're absolutely no different. There's this, for me, myth around, well, you earn X amount a week, so therefore you should be immune to this stuff. That's not the case. And I just think that what he's voicing is that he's struggling and he needs help. For me, I look at that statement, two things I take away from it. One, it's a cry for help, because I'm very sure after a statement like that, the player welfare, the player cares, the manager, coaches around the club will be reaching out and offering their support and obviously private support alongside that. And I also look at it as an outburst that lacks accountability. I sympathise with him. He's been through a lot, gambling being one of them. I'm a compulsive gambler and I've spent many years battling it. It's something that definitely challenges the mind, and it's a disease of the mind, actually. And Paqueta may still be struggling with that. We don't know what goes on inside, but the fact that he's made a statement like that, I would like to now see another statement, whether that be from the club or whether that be from him at a later stage, to know that he's getting support, because ultimately that's way more important than 3 points on a Sunday afternoon.
Okay, this part of kicking it off, I get to ask, what on earth, as I asked Stephen, what on earth is going on? Right, let's start with Tottenham, shall we? What on earth is this all about? First of all, Thomas Frank comes out at the end of the game and had a go at the fans for booing at the end, and in particular for booing at Vicario. What he said was his real Tottenham fans wouldn't do that. Or football fans have the right to boo whoever they want. They pay their money. They're the people who are up at 6 a.m. and going off to work and doing whatever they do to scrape their money to go and pay to see them play. If they pay that money, they have a right to boo. So what on earth is going on here, Stephen? Who is right, Thomas Frank or the fans who boo?
Honestly, I can see from both sides. I'm going to give you two different perspectives here. One, I want to start with the fans. I completely get it. I've been semi-retired for a little while now and enjoy watching Premier League games just as much as any fan out there. It is super frustrating when teams aren't performing, when players don't look to be trying as hard, or they look to be having this bothered attitude and so on and so on. It is frustrating. And I completely get why fans who have spent their hard-earned money are booing when Spurs' home form is the way it is right now. However, I am going to flip the script a little bit and say, as a player and currently as a coach, it doesn't help. That's what I'm going to say. It just doesn't help. When you're in a bad moment, Thomas Frank knows he's in a bad moment. The players at Spurs, Vicario, if you mentioned a couple of times, he knows he's not in the best of moments. Do the fans booing help any of that? Clearly not. Away from home, they went and produced the best performance I've seen Spurs play in many years away to Man City, at the Etihad. Amazing game. So we know they've got the quality. We know they've got a top manager because he's proven that at Brentford. And I'm absolutely certain he will prove that at Spurs if given time. But the frustration around the inconsistency is what led to the booing.
Just 3 wins at home this calendar year. That's an expensive... I don't know how much that is per win that those season ticket holders have paid out for that one. But I guess supporter, the clue is in the word, isn't it? You should support your team. Right. So we've mentioned Newcastle already, and we've had West Ham against Liverpool. And I was checking out a player who played for all three and a player who's played against you. And I was thinking, what on earth is going on here? Andy Carroll this weekend, remember him? He's only 36. He scored a hat-trick for Dagenham and Redbridge this weekend. And he's in the 6th tier of English football. So what on earth, Stephen, is going on there?
Love of the game. It's got to be. Absolutely love of the game. And I could just imagine him being an absolute handful at that level, because he certainly was when I played against him in the Premier League. Putting it in the nicest way possible, a horrible player to play against. Just big, strong, was more than happy to put on your T-shirt, was more than happy to go out bleeding with his elbows, and he wanted it. A cold, wet night at Upton Park, he wanted it. He was ready to go to war every single game. So I could just imagine what damage he's causing right now in the 6th tier. And I love stories like that. 36 years of age, still going strong, scored a hat-trick. And it'd be another football that he gets to go home with and frame up in his house.
Steven gets his balls out.
Now it's time on kicking off to look ahead to the games that will kick off in midweek. It's a full Premier League card, and it's time to get out Stephen's crystal balls as he looks into the future and perhaps points away to the results that will come your way this week. Let's start with Tuesday. Let's start with Fulham, who went to Tottenham with some aplomb. Can they repeat the feat against City?
For me, I'm going to go with City. I think that Fulham are always a difficult team to play against. They always are, and they proved down the weekend against Spurs. But for me, I'm going to go with City, and I'm going to go with a Haaland goal, as he was quiet this weekend. So Erling Haaland back on the score sheet, and I'm going to go for 2-1 City.
Okay. We can't go through every game. We haven't got time. They were kicked off by the time we got to them. So let's pick out some of the other highlights. Spurs. The great news for Spurs is they're not at home midweek. They go to Newcastle.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough game for Spurs going to St James's Park with a Newcastle side that have just scored 4 away to Everton. I'm going to, unfortunately, go against my own side and say that I think Newcastle are going to get the 3 points. I just can't see Spurs right now turning it around this quickly. So I'm going to go with a Newcastle 2-1. I hope Spurs at least get a goal. And these are just my predictions. If I'm going to be wrong in any game, I hope it's this one.
I hear you, Steven Caulker. I hear you. Let's go to Wednesday, shall we? It's, according to you, the gap will be 2 points between Manchester City and Arsenal when Arsenal kick off against Brentford. That's if City get that win at Fulham that you predicted. So if we go with your predictions, will it be 2 points at the end? Will it be 3 points at the end? Or will Arsenal once again keep that 5 point gap?
I imagine Arsenal will keep that 5 point gap. As highly as I've spoken of Keith Andrews and the main man of the weekend, Thiago, I think they'll struggle against a very, very well organised Arsenal side. I just think that Arsenal, especially at home, are going to be a little bit too strong for Brentford. So I'm going to go Arsenal, and I'm going to go 3-1.
Okay, let's also go to Wednesday and check out a game. It's not the first one they would have noted down, Leeds fans. That would have been Manchester United, I would think, when the fixtures came out. But the second one they would have looked for would be Chelsea. These two teams don't like each other. Memories of 1970, David Webb with the back post header to win the FA Cup for Chelsea. They've detested each other since, but it is Leeds-Chelsea. Which way is this one going to go?
You're showing your age there, Rob. I wasn't even born when that goal went in. I'm going to go with Chelsea. I think they're going to keep the pressure on Arsenal, and they're well within touching distance. So I'm going to go with an away win for Chelsea. But having played at Ellen Road, I can tell it's a really, really tough place to go. It's hostile. It's difficult. I'm going to go with Chelsea, but I'm going to go Chelsea 1-0.
Okay, also on Wednesday. Not since 2012, Nicholas Bentner with the goal of Sunderland beaten Liverpool. In fact, you have to go back to 1983 for the last time Sunderland won at Anfield. It's unthinkable, isn't it? Or is it that Sunderland could get a win at Liverpool?
Sunderland have just been unreal this season. It's so refreshing to see a promoted team do what they were doing. Absolutely incredible. Liverpool, I'm hoping for Arne Slot's sake and for Liverpool's sake, it's one of my former teams that they have turned a little bit of a corner with that result against West Ham this weekend. So I'm going to go with a Liverpool win, but I can't see them keeping a clean sheet. I think Sunderland have got way too much threat going forward and way too much to offer. So I'm going to go with Liverpool, but I'm going to go with a 3-2 last-minute winner, which will see them over the line.
Okay, let's complete our little whisk around of your Caulker's crystal balls with Manchester United against West Ham. That game is on Thursday. We know there's no Paqueta. Which is the real Man United? Which one will we see as they take on West Ham?
You're leaving me with the toughest team in the world to predict in Manchester United. 1 week, amazing. Next week, who knows what they're going to provide. I do believe that United at home against West Ham without Paqueta will be strong enough to get the job done. However, it never looks simple with United, so I can't see a 2-3-0 thrashing. I think it'll be close, but I'm going to go with United 2-1.
Well, that about wraps it up for kicking off this week. Thanks very much for watching and listening. I see, it's wonderful.
Yeah, massive thanks to all of you who have tuned in this week. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below if you'd like us to talk about anything you've got in your mind in next week's show. We'll see you next time.